that bite.
You know, the one that sucked you?
Nope, the ones that you work on that you did everything right, but it still bit you. Usually it happened because you were playing with your cell phone. Okay, now then, this happened, you know, that a long time ago I was working at a Volkswagen place, and we used to do valve adjustments on those Volkswagen Rabbits all the time. The unusual valve adjustments on those, which is, you don't usually see a lot of people doing valve adjustments on these unless it's some dealership place. And we charged, and this, you gotta remember, this was in 1983, it was $18 to do a valve adjustment. And you had to pull the valve cover off, you had to get your valves, you know, like you see right here, see them turned up. And you had these tools. Little tool to depress the valve, you know, when you had to blow up. You measured it with a go, no go feeler gauge. And so if you had too much clearance, you would push that this cam follower down, and you would take that set of special pliers, and you would reach into them slots, and you get that shim out of there, and you would replace it with a thicker shim. You know, you could mic it, or you could have marks on it sometimes. Pull the shim out, mic it, or usually the numbers were where you could read them. Put another shim in there, and you do that. Most of them, we didn't have to change the shims that much. Now, I will tell you this, if the valves were out of adjustment, they didn't run that bad. But everybody always wanted a valve adjustment. That's the way I found when I was working at the Asian and, you know, foreign car dealerships. The people would come in there, and every time they had a box that needed to be checked in that owner's manual, they were checking that box. They were making doggone sure that you did everything just exactly right. But if you're driving a Ford or a Chevrolet, they wanted to beat the crap out of it, never change the oil, and expected it to last 250,000 miles, you know, and sometimes they did. All right, so anyway, the cam followers on these old Rabbits were a lot like the ones commonly found on overhead cam engines in Toyotas, but the difference, some of these cam followers have got hydraulic lash adjusters built into them. Some of the ones on the Toyotas, the little followers, little buckets that ride on top of there, go down a bore, and they actually have different thicknesses of those. Now, if you ever have to pull all of those out of one of these Toyotas, make doggone sure you pull those things out and you line them up on the bench exactly like they go in there, because you will change valve clearance if you put them back in there in a different order than what they came out. See what I mean? You don't want to go there. As a matter of fact, if you're pulling one apart that's got push rods, you know, it's a good idea to put all the push rods back in exactly the same place if it's not when you adjust the valve. But anyway, Toyota style cam followers don't have shims. You know, they basically are made all in one piece. But this is the way that this thing was put together. The valve springs aren't visible. You know, you can't even see the valve springs underneath it. It's a little bucket-shaped affair that fits into a smooth bore with the center of its underside sitting on the valve stem. And the top of the cam follower is machined to accept and hold a shim, just like I showed you right here. See? And there's a shim, you know, there's one. You replace one with a different thickness so you can get your clearance right. Now, you're going to do that with the cam lobe up, right? And you would be surprised, somebody that does that, how fast you can knock it out. You can do it in 20 minutes. If you were, you know, you had, and the parts guy would give us a big old pack of shims right here, because he was always playing with his cell phone. Okay, question number one. What is the term that describes, oh, I've got to give out my answer sheets. I've got one right here. Here you go. Make sure everybody has one of those, McBride. Sorry about that, I sure passed them out. Is this today's test?
Right. Are we not supposed to say this?
Huh?
We're not supposed to say it out loud?
No, you don't say it out loud, you write it on your paper. Write it on your paper. And keep your paper covered up so nobody else can see it. You know, like you did when you were in high school. All right, everybody has an answer sheet. What is the term that describes the place indicated on this valve opening chart? Your exhaust lobe is open all the way, and then you go, then your intake lobe is open all the way.
Where the arrow's at?
Where the arrow's at. What do you call that place? Moving on. Routine for a VW dealer tech was, these are actually the tools like that are really a better quality than the first one that showed you the whole job can be done in 30 minutes. Well, the dirty hand is dealt. I have done a zillion of these valve adjustments, never had a problem with any of them. And then I get one that's on a diesel, and the guy comes in there and he wants his valves adjusted. And I don't know if he hadn't done it a long time, what the deal was. But when I was checking them with my no feeler gauge, I'm finding these things were just loose as a goose. I mean, they had a lot of clearance, which valves that are too tight will eventually burn. Valves that are too loose, you know, there's some smacking going on there every time that thing comes around. Those shims are hard anyway. Anyway, so, well, I need to put them like they're supposed to be. So I had to get shims that were a whole lot thicker than what I was used to using in order to put, and I did the whole thing with the car kind of warm anyway, you know, it wasn't ever totally cold. Got through with it, adjusted the valves, and said, man, he's got more valve lift now than he had, it ought to run better. So I drove it, parked it, everything seemed like it was fine, and so did the whole job, parked it out there, it was a car that looked like that one right there. This guy was not happy. And what happened was, these bores that those little buckets slide down in, because they hadn't been going as deep as they were after I made them right, they was sticking on the varnish that had gathered in those holes. And it would stick, and it would hold the valve open, then the piston would bump the valve and it would slap shut, and it would make this clankety, 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 clank noise, and then when it started up, it would clankety, clank until it warmed up, and then it would clean up its act. Wasn't hurting the engine, but it was scary as all get out, because this guy wasn't hearing that noise when he came in there. So he just raised Cain about this, you know. Now, I think the service manager was out that day, and we were sort of, you know, doing our own thing. But I told the guy, I says, well, okay, let me, you know, get back in here, look at it again, and all that kind of stuff. Option one, I could tear everything down, clean the oil varnish from the cam follower bores, but our friendly customer wasn't gonna pay for all that work. He's not gonna pay for it. Option two, I could put the valves loose like they were when he came in and send him on his way, which is what I decided to do. Now, I went ahead and washed the engine real good, made it all clean so he'd be happy. And he told me, boy, you really handled this very neatly. I hadn't done anything wrong. I did nothing wrong. He was dissatisfied, he was screaming and hollering and throwing a fit, all that kind of thing. Okay, circumstantial landmine, blows up in your face. You're just walking along doing your thing, you know, working hard, trying to turn all the hours you can every day, not play with your cell phone. Because I was working along doing everything by the rules, blew up my face. Don't get mad, deal with it, and move on. The service advisor, question number two, true story. Service advisor brings a customer to talk to you about a problem he's having with his truck. I'll tell you what the problem was that he was having. He said, when I run my truck, it transfers fuel from the front tank to the back tank. And sometimes it runs over. If I run the front tank first, the back tank will actually fill up with gas and run over, get it pumped and transferred to the first tank. And I said, well, I haven't worked on this guy's truck. I've never seen this guy before. I don't even know who he is, but the service writer brought him back here. And I said, if I was just going to guess at that, I would probably put a fuel tank selector valve on it, because sometimes they fail and it causes it. That's really all it could be, you know. Of course, anytime you categorically say, yes, this is what it is, it's bound to be something else, and you get egg on your face. So I said, I think this is probably what it is. And he says, well, I'm not going to have you experiment on my truck, you SOB, and he actually said the words. Okay, put yourself there. How do you react?
See you.
Write it down. Don't talk about it. Write it down. There is a right answer and there's a wrong answer. Okay?
No, no.
Okay.
There's gonna be some stars on this one.
All right.
I gotta think about that.
That is a true story, you know, and I'll tell you how I handle it when this is all over with, okay? All right, keeping the annoying was out. My dad was running his shop. This is my dad, you know, from a long time ago. He looks different now. You might remember when he comes up here, he doesn't quite look like this. But anyway, he's smoking a cigar there. He made a remark that whenever he worked on a Corvair, he had to do it with the shop doors closed. And when somebody asked why, he says, if somebody sees me working on that, they'll bring me a nothing. And see, a lot of what he worked on a whole bunch of different foreign cars, and technically Corvair wasn't a foreign car, but people would bring it to him because the people at the Chevy place didn't like Corvairs. And it was closer, you know, air-cooled V6 horizontal post. That funky fan in there, the generator was mounted over here to charge your battery, and then you had your this pulley here, come off the crankshaft, go on. The odd thing about a Corvair is the engine turned backwards. You know, most engines in those days, and nowadays, unless the engine's in the car backwards, they turn. If you're looking at the front of the engine, they turn clockwise, well, the Corvair turned the other way. And you could stuff a Corvair engine in a Volkswagen Bug, but you'd have 4 reverse gears. You know, so, but you had to put the ring gear on the other side of the pinion to make that work right. Anyway, and also you had to cut a bunch of the fenders and stuff off because it wouldn't fit where the other engine went. Well, some cars we just don't like. Now, you're going to be shocked by the next slide that I'm getting ready to show you. You're really going to be shocked. Most of them see Ford Probes the same way. They run good when they're running, but when they come in with a problem, it can be expensive and painful. It's a, you know, grand and glorious adventure when one comes in. I drove one time that was quitting. Drive it, you know, I actually was supposed to be cutting it off and, you know, it started to cool off. And so I let it run for a long time in my service bay. And I said, well, what's going on here? You know, at least, you know, everything's like a learning experience on them. So I got in it and I drove it. After it was good and hot, but it never would quit in my stall. But when I drove it down there on the bypass, I got right in front of a movie gallery, and I coasted over and turned into the into the turnaround. And the traffic out here on the traffic circle is going by like a river, and so I go, I said, well, this thing got no spark. And so I said, I bet that module's hot, because I never had seen that before, but that's the only thing it could be, or it was a good thing. So the module mounted in the distributor on that one. So I pulled the windshield washer hose and pulled it over there, laid it over the distributor where it was in there, and I went wee, and then I went, boom, fired it up, drove back, put a $400 module in it. Yay, we're good to go. Look at this. Look at that and be shocked. The Ford Probe almost replaced the Mustang.
Wasn't that when, Robert?
That was when it
Guy,
was
that real guy?
It was in the late 80s. That wasn't the Mustang. That was what they were planning on doing.
It was gonna be,
They were going to replace the Mustang with that stupid thing. Front wheel drive Mazda car, and they were actually going to replace the Mustang. See that? Auto Week exclusive 89 Mustang, 89 whatever.
Wasn't that when the Mustangs were real ugly? Gas
Well,
powered Mustang?
yes and no, but you know, the Fox bodies were out there then. I mean, that's not too
That's
bad.
what it was, a Fox body?
The Fox body was what they were going to replace it with.
well, weren't they trying to make a four-wheel drive Mustang? Yeah, not four-wheel, front-wheel drive.
Yeah, that's it. That's what they were going to do.
Then it just changed.
And the people, you know, thank God for outraged customers. They threw it. The Mustang is the most recognized car on the planet. Anywhere you go, anybody knows what a car is, they know what a Mustang is, because that's what they've seen, you know what I mean? I mean, more of them know what Mustangs are than any other car out there. And of all your models, you can look at something and just tell you, oh, that's a Mustang. I mean, as soon as you look at it, you know it's a Mustang, you know?
What about full club?
But, all right. Question 3. You come up for a repair order that's really tough. It's a job you absolutely don't want to do. Not because it doesn't pay well, but because it's a tough job. Are you going to A, complain to the service manager, B, go home for the day, C, man up, do the job, and beat book time, D, tell the customer their car is a piece of junk? Okay? Yeah. When I was working at the Volkswagen dealer, there was a 72 Volkswagen bus came in there, which was the Volkswagen bus. And in 72, they took the regular standard Volkswagen engine out and they put a Porsche engine in it, which made it a lot more trouble to work on. And he gave it to this guy that was working over there. They usually turn pretty good hours, but the guy liked the gravy. You know, the gravy work's easy work. And so he was over there screaming and yelling at the service manager, saying, "You said you were going to give the next one of these to somebody else." He said, "Well, you're up for the job." He said, "I am." So he just got in his car and went home. And so they gave it to me, and I did it. You had to have a rear main seal, but you got to pull the motor out. You got to pull all that junk. It's really a lot of trouble, but I went ahead and did it anyway. You know, so anyway, I think nobody really tell you what the right answer is that way. You know what I'm saying? All right, simultaneous failures. Joe brought his probe to us with an inoperative AC and a dead charging system, and both concerns happened at the same time. I opened the hood, I saw that the belt was gone. You know, it was supposed to be pulling the alternator. It was easy to see because it was right there where it was. And that's the belt that came off of it. And the inboard belt that drives the water pump and power steering was still in place. In other words, there's one coming off the inside of that part of that pulley. All right, this is what happens. That part of that pulley, the balancer, you know, the rubber part, it come off of there. And that was that pulley right down there. So he hands me the pulley ring that he picked up in his driveway. Look what I found in the driveway. Yeah, well, duh. You know, it came off. So the ring was the bigger of the two pulleys that are married to the rubber ring up with it, and it had come off. And sometimes these things, you know, they come apart. I mean, those balancers, because just about every balancer's got rubber in between the inner and the outer part, sometimes they start slipping on that. Question 4. When faced with several simultaneous component failures on a vehicle, you should A, replace all the components and close the ticket. Right? Try to find out what killed all the components. Talk to the service advisor or customer and attempt to determine if all the failures indeed happened at once. Because sometimes things will go wrong and something else will go wrong, something else will go wrong like weeks apart. And when it gets bad enough, they'll come and bring it to you. That's one of the reasons I tell people to get a check engine light taken care of as quick as they can. Because if problems start piling up behind it, when you finally do decide to get it fixed, it may be an expensive bill. All right, so you install a new balancer. This would be a simple repair, but a replacement balancer was easy enough to obtain, and it took some gymnastics to the puller because it's real close in there. You know, we got it out of there, and so we managed to get it off. And I inspected the part of the timing belt that was visible. I could see the timing belt after I pulled the balancer off, and it was a brand spanking new timing belt. You know how when you see the bright shiny words on it and this kind of thing? He didn't mention the fact that but this wasn't a car he drove a lot, but it was one that he kind of wanted to hang on to because he liked it, right? All right, so applies the necessary torque to overcome the interference fits. Good idea to put grease on the threads. Seat the gear against the crankshaft boss, and that's important on any engine. And the reason it's important is well, let's see. If the outer part of a harmonic balancer slips, the timing marks may not be dependable, the crank sensor might be damaged, the belt might wear unevenly, or any of the above. Imagine that. Okay. What, you didn't read those? All right. All right. This is a graphic I put together on paint. You know, you might notice I love to use paint. This right here is the crank gear. This is the key. This right here is the nose of the crankshaft. This is the boss that the crank gear goes up against, and this is kind of like what you're looking at on there. I'll tell you a couple of things about this. If somebody puts one of these on there and it's an interference fit, an interference fit is not really a press fit, it's just one where it's kind of hard to go on there, you know. All right, if somebody stops, and I've seen this happen, if somebody stops right before this makes contact with that, they may even have it close enough to where the belt ain't that bad out of shape. But if this is not pinching that gear good and tight against that, then what's carrying all the load of those camshafts is this key right here. And that key right there can't handle that over a long period of time. It'll eventually shear the key, and then the crankshaft gets ahead of the gear, and what does that do? It causes the camshafts to be out of time. And you won't be able to tell by looking at this either, because this part of the keyway that's up in there is still holding. But you didn't pull that tight enough to get there. You better do that. You know, don't just feel it. BI8. You know what I'm saying? That's the wrong way to be. All right. About to clamp the timing gear really firmly against the crankshaft ball so the key won't be carrying the torque. I've never seen this in any textbook, but I have seen it cause a problem. And also, what I was telling John earlier, on the ones, you know, like on the Toyota out there, when it's got whenever you got you take the bolt out and you just pull the balancer off. Those Escorts are like that. And what'll happen on those Escorts, they actually have the tone wheel, like you see on this engine over here, on the balancer. And when that tone wheel is going by that crank sensor, if you didn't tighten that up good, a lot of people put it back together without tightening it up good, it'll start rocking and it'll wallow out that key. And then the timing can get late. And the engine can have, even though you can't set the timing, the engine can have late ignition timing because all of a sudden that little key is not indexed good anymore. All right, if the balancer isn't properly tightened to pinch the gear, long and short of it is always tighten the balancer as much as it's supposed to be tightened if you want to stay out of trouble. If somebody comes back and they find out that this happened and you didn't tighten that up, sometimes you have to replace the dadgum crankshaft. That's not good, is it? We don't want to go there. All right. Car will be back on the hook with the valves out of time and possibly bent if it's not a free spinner. So don't go there. Leave that alone, okay? All right, now then, everyone got it put together. New belts were installed in time. The splash shield, everything's put on, fired it up, back down the shop, ran good. Why test drive it? We just put a balancer on it, you know what I'm saying? He was running just fine before. He just drove it down here without the alternator put down. So when the customer started it up and drove away, he got about 300 feet and the engine died because he was playing with his cell phone. Okay, right here, this was him, right here. You know, he was thinking with two of those, right? All right. This is a look on your face of the vehicle you worked on yesterday, shows up on the tow truck. All right. When a failure occurs right after you worked on a customer ride, you should A, get mad, B, tell the customer it wasn't your fault before you even look at it. Find out what happened to be honest if you were at fault, or lie. New diagnosis. The probe spun and acted like it wanted to start, but it just wouldn't. So it deteriorated to the point it was backfiring through the intake, puffing smoke through a narrow crack in this rotted air inlet hose, which, you know, we probably should have caught that earlier, but we were working on the other end of the motor, right? And he wasn't complaining about the way it ran. But anyway, it would at least need that $100 air inlet tube when all that was over. And this was the first time we worked on his car, and it shook him up. Because, oh no, they screwed up my car, you know, this kind of thing. All right, so we backtracked. We checked the fuel pressure, 40 pounds. We checked the fuel quality and spark, which were both fine. Why was it firing like it had cross plug wires? This didn't make any sense. I mean, it had a distributor on it, right? We hadn't done anything at all in the ignition system. Nobody had any of those wires off. You remember what Jonathan was working on out there that would never start because he had plug wires on their own? Remember that? This little, you know, model. It was a similar engine to that one. All right, since the crankshaft tone wheel was on the balancer we had just replaced, and since the crank sensor was so close to our work, I had the students remove the right front wheel and the splash shield and nothing, didn't see anything. Something, maybe the crank sensor wire maybe got against something, because sometimes people won't secure the crank sensor wire good and it'll get cut, chewed up and cause issues and make them quit. That's something really, really, really important to look at. Make doggone sure that crank sensor wire is routed so it don't get against the belt and don't get it, because if it quits in a bad part of town and somebody gets assaulted because you didn't fix their car right, it's on you. You know what I'm saying? All right. Induction backfire is always caused by A, cross spark plug wires, B, cam timing, C, lean misfires, or D, none of the above. Yeah, that's when it backfires through the intake. Boop, boop, boop. You know, you might even heard the Bronco doing that. All right, moving on. When the timing cover is pulled off, we pull the timing cover off. Got to where we can see the belts, the pulleys. See, we actually had, they were supposed to line up just like this. They got, looking at one. And then we got the one down there on the crank pulley. All right, so we determined the timing belt wasn't the problem because all the timing marks lined up perfectly. Okay? So the crank pulley mark and the cam gear marks were lined up. The engine was obviously on top dead center compression when those marks were lined up. The engine was in the place it was supposed to be. But what about the distributor? It was firing out of time. There must have been something going on over here, right? Well, the distributor is driven by the exhaust camshaft on the front head, so why not remove the distributor cap and see where the rotor's pointing? I've done that. I don't know how many times I've done that. Whenever somebody was, you know, I didn't know if somebody put it in there right, or if I thought if the timing chain may be stretched on one of the old V8 engines, you can actually get it around, you know, get it around to where your balancers line up on zero, and then move the engine backwards until you see the rotor start to move. You can tell how many degrees of timing chain stretch you got. It's a pretty good way to, you knew about that, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can
I
see
wanted
you.
to do that on the Cadillac. I wrote down
Yeah,
Cadillac.
how'd that work out?
You said it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a stickler, boy, on that Cadillac. If you don't have a cylinder hone and you do engine work, you should A, find somebody to loan you on one whenever you need it, B, use sandpaper, C, don't worry about honing the cylinder, or D, buy a good hone. I'd like to tell a story about this guy that was an engine mechanic over at the Ford place. And his name was Donnie Smith. I liked the guy. And he had a great big old beard on his face, and he talked like a serious hillbilly man, you know. And he was over there rooting around in Philip Kirkland's toolbox. And I said, what are you digging around in Philip Kirkland's toolbox for? This ain't your toolbox. He goes, I'm looking for a cylinder hone. And I said, well, don't you have a cylinder hone? You're an engine mechanic. He goes, my brother borrowed my cylinder hone. He didn't give it back. I said, why didn't you brother by the beard and jerk him around? He goes, how do you know my brother had a beard? I couldn't imagine him not a beard, you know. Anyway, where's it pointing? Pull the cap off, position number one. See, we had everything lined up, so it should have been pointing to number one. You got me? Or real close to number one, I'll put it that way. We found the rotor was pointing at number 6 instead of number 1. What has happened here? We hadn't even been back there, man. He didn't do anything on this end. And now all this happened while he's driving away? I mean, he went 300 feet running just fine. All of a sudden, I watched him.
Did y'all take the timing chain, please?
No, we just pulled the balancer off and put it back on. Found our smoking gun, man. This is what the deal was. All right, so with the rotor pointing at 6, and this one turns counterclockwise when seen from this angle, what might have caused the issue? In other words, this distributor turns that direction. And the firing order is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like it is on a lot of V6 engines. Right?
It's got a belt instead of a chain?
It's got a belt, yeah.
Did y'all turn it the wrong way?
No, we didn't do that. The gear marks were lined up. Hey, if I'm calling the shots, it ain't gonna get turned the wrong way, okay? That only happens when Zach goes over there and he says, doop, 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 doop. Ooh, now the timing's out. Did you do that, Zach? I went over there and this is how I knew that. I walked over there, because it was after I came back from Kansas City. I walked under this thing and I saw a ratchet hanging on there. And I went, that's interesting. And so I felt to the ratchet to see which way it was set. And I says, golly, they've been turning this thing backwards. This is not good. You know, of course, we had to go in there anyway because it needed a timing chain tensioner, you know. I mean, that was what was making all that rack. But anyway, there's only one thing I can think of that made sense. What makes sense? What would it be? Anybody know?
Alright, so what all did y'all do? All y'all did was take the balancer off.
You know, put it back on. And that's all we did. The only part we had off was down there at the bottom.
And distributor rotors turned to the wrong spot?
Yeah, but what's turning the distributor rotor?
The camshaft.
All right.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, it is. The cam gear bolt was loose, and the engine died when that gear spun ahead and left its shaft and the distributor behind, caused a crossfire and ignition in the engine stall. But had our impact wrenching the crank bolt out loosened the cam bolt. All right, now, there's supposed to be, all right, here we go. On an inline 4-cylinder engine, you can find number 4 DTC exhaust stroke by doing what? Lining up the timing marks, finding top dead center compression on number 2, finding a valve overlap on number 1, or none of the above. All right, gear shaft relationship. You see this knock pin?
Yeah.
That's supposed to be there. Whoever put the timing belt on this
Like, can
darn
you find the
thing,
last question?
whoever put the timing belt on there,
Okay.
whoever put the timing belt on there lost that pin. Plumb lost it. And they were just depending on the bolt to keep the timing chain. And that's the way it is on some of the other engines, you know, anyway. But this one here, instead of that, see where that little slot, where that pin goes? There was no pin there. And this bolt, you know, it was missing. Somebody just lined it up, tightened the crap out of the bolt to keep the cam gear in the shaft line. It worked okay until we did our impact wrench work, and you know, the timing belt was pulling on it and it loosened it up a little bit, or it may have moved it. I don't know what happened. It loosened it up anyway. Now, some of the little 4-cylinder engines, you're supposed to line up the camshafts and make sure they're in line with this bar right here, like their Mazda 4-cylinder engines. And then these right here don't have keyways or anything in them. You basically have you line the timing marks up, you line the camshafts up, this tool here, the timing, and you also got to put the crankshaft, there's a little pin you're supposed to put in there to make sure the crankshaft's in the right place, but it goes in the side of the block. We've already talked about that one time. Everything is where it's supposed to be, you got to make sure. So we opted out to find the sweet spot on the cam boss where the gear needed to be, and let the torque of the bolt hold the gear the way it does on the 4-liter. Put a bigger washer on it where it's nice and tight, you know. You might notice the ones on the 4-liter and all these, they got big, thick, strong washers on them. Not just a, you know, small washer. So I used an old Jeep 4-liter rotor alignment trick to decide where the camshaft should be in relation to the gear. So what does a 4-liter Jeep got to do with this thing here? Well, I'll tell you. Here we go. The best kind of job is one where you earn your money with all your smarts and skills, can sit around and play on your phone all day and get fat, dumb, and happy. Don't have to show up for work unless you feel like it. We'll get laid off whenever oil prices drop. You know? Which kind of job is the best one to get there? All right. Okay, we found the spot. You see, I gave you a little x-ray view into the rotor. On the Jeep, what you're supposed to do is line it up on TDC compression number 1, and you're supposed to have this rotor blade just passing that post. All right, now what that does, the timing is not adjusted by turning the distributor. It's a cam sensor in there. But what you do is when you lock that thing down like that with it in there, it's going to make it so that whenever it fires from that post, it's closest to the post, it's centered up on that post. The firing window on that needs to be centered up on that post. If you've got it a little out of alignment, it may be back here, and it may jump and hit that one instead of that one. When it's supposed to be hitting that one, it may be hitting that one. You got me? We don't want that. All right. So we set the camshaft so the distributor rotor was just passing the number 1 firing post. That's the way we did it. We basically had everything lined up. We turned the camshaft so the distributor rotor was just passing it. And then we locked it down really, really good and hard because I wasn't going to order a knock pin, have to wait for the thing to come in, all that kind of junk. It's been driving like that for a while. May have been a bad call, but I tell you what, he drove that thing for years and never had any more trouble with it. So the proof's in the pudding. Okay, the timing advances and retards. You're like, what's your timing going to be when you're driving down the road? You got any ideas? No, when you're driving down the road in a float, holding your speed, it's going to be like 50, 55 degrees. What that means is it's firing with that rotor a lot sooner. And if the rotor alignment's not right, it's going to hit the wrong post and it makes it surge.
Wouldn't that make it,
Not whenever it's not under load. All right. Okay, that trick worked. So we torqued the camshaft bolt to 100 foot-pounds, it slid the valve cover back on it, and the engine ran smooth and quiet. It's one of those, you know, one of those moments. What if this had gone south in a big way and it had been a bunch of valves? He didn't want that took care of, you know. We set the ignition timing, tightened the distributor, installed the cover, the belt splash shield, put that little landmine behind us, and Joel was good to go. There he is, burning out, taking off. Actually, he didn't do that. That's another car I got off the internet. So. All right. Now then, what we got to do is back up and look at our answers to our questions. Well, that's going to take a while, isn't it?
before you answer number 1, you look at it.
Number 1. You going to do it?